No decision has yet been made on the debt ceiling, and that August 2nd deadline now just 16 days away. The Treasury Secretary was on Squawk this morning saying he is certain a deal will be made and a default, if it happens, would have grave consequences.
If the United States of America were to default, it would be catastrophic for the American economy, for the American financial system, for the average American people. It would be a substantial, unfair tax on all Americans, and it would bring the world economy again, because of the critical role we play in the global economy, to the edge of recession again.
Joining us this morning, Jared Bernstein, Senior Fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, a former economic policy advisor to the Vice President, and former Senator from New Hampshire, and my own personal supply of maple syrup, Senator Judd Gregg. Both are CNBC contributors. Senator, good to see you. Jared, good morning.
Hello. Carl, I hope you're not taking that maple syrup away from your kids.
The kids still love it, believe it or not.
I want some maple syrup.
All that in mind, Senator, are you getting increasingly nervous that we might not get the deal we thought we were going to get?
Well, there'll be a deal. There may have to be some drama before they have it, a weekend of drama and maybe even a couple of days after that. But there'll be a deal. I think it's going to be nowhere near the number that I'd like, which would be close to the House budget number of $6 trillion, or even the $4 trillion that the Simpson-Bowles proposal was. It'll probably be in the $1 trillion range, and it'll kick the can down the road.
So you think it is some version of McConnell's plan, which I wonder if you would have voted for if you were still there.
I don't think the part where where in the McConnell plan basically gives the president unilateral authority to raise the debt ceiling as long as he tells us specifically how he's going to save money. I'm not sure that part will be part of the final package. But the number will be, I think, between $1 and $1.5 trillion, because that's the number that they can reach through reducing spending in ways that there's basically a general agreement on, or was a general agreement on in the Biden negotiating group, I believe. So that number is doable, and that gets us off of this spot that we're in right now, but it does move the issue out only probably 8 to 12 months before we're back here again, and so it doesn't resolve the bigger problem, which is our deficit and our debt.
Jared, what's your take on where we stand now and whether or not we will be able to avoid default? And I'm curious because Treasury Secretary Geithner said that there is no plan B, and Bob McTeer came on and said, you know what, that was sort of just a brinksmanship. It was a bargaining chip that was being pulled out by the administration.
Yeah. Look, the administration has been consistent about that, and while you may be right that there's contingency planning, for all intents and purposes, there is no Plan B, because Plan B involves either default or reneging on payments to our military, to our seniors, et cetera. I mean, there really is no way out of this other than to raise the ceiling. I agree with the senator that the plan that is on the table, $1.5 trillion in spending cuts, nothing on the revenue side, which I view as unfortunate, is probably the plan we're talking about. One difference, though, between my view and I think that of the senators, part of this plan, the president won't sign it unless the increase of the debt ceiling is in the neighborhood of $2.5 trillion, which is, I understand, the plan on the table, because that gets you to after the election. So yes, kicking the can, but kicking the can till after the election.
Senator, your thoughts on what S&P said last week? I wonder if you think the ratings agencies are altering the dynamic here, arguing that you might get a number, but if it's not our number, you're still going to get 2 A's instead of 3.
Well, the rating agencies aren't moving the needle very much in Washington. I mean, it's discussed, as is Greece. I mean, these are very real warning signs. But what's moving the needle in Washington is the politics of this, and we're talking presidential politics in this case. And so I'd have to disagree with Jared. I think if the president gets a $1.5 trillion debt ceiling increase on his desk, he's going to have to sign it. He can't not sign it. I mean, then he'd be responsible for the chaos that would follow. So I think the House is probably in a pretty strong position to send him that number and force the event to occur again a year from now, which is the politics of the presidential election. I mean, that's the issue.
So Senator may be right. He has a great feel for these kinds of things. But here's the thing. From the very beginning, the White House has taken what I think is a very reasonable view, one in sync with the Fiscal Commission, with various other commissions, which is that the plan should include some revenues in the deal. Not 50-50. The original Obama plan was $1 of revenue increases for $2 of spending cuts. In order to give that up, the president, who has, I think, tried to bend over backwards to get this debt ceiling passed, has to get something back. And he has consistently said, okay, if I go for $1.5 trillion in cuts, then I need a debt ceiling that takes us to post the 2012 election. I believe that's the reason he walked out of that meeting the other day and got so incensed with the intractability. I mean, House Republicans have to give something back, and this seems like at least a reasonable deal. I'd actually like to see them be much more reasonable on the revenue side.
Senator, well, given the dynamics of the whole situation and what is reasonable and realistic at this point, what would be a victory in your view for your party? What does the Republican Party need to achieve at the end of the day?
Well, my view would be a victory would be if we did something for the economy and for the country by actually addressing the debt and the deficit problem, by getting back and addressing what's driving it. You know, Willie Sutton said he robbed banks because that's where the money is. Well, the money's in the entitlement programs. Until the president's willing to step up and get specific on some of these entitlement programs, Social Security and Medicare being the big ones, nothing's going to happen that's going to solve the long-term debt problem. Now, I'd have to disagree with Jared, though. I mean, I do not see that the president has a whole lot of cards here. If the House passes a debt ceiling increase and they do it at $1.5 trillion and it goes over to the Senate, the president, and then it comes out of the Senate at that number, I don't see where the president's going to be vetoing something like that. The responsibility would be rather awesome if he did.
I don't think he'll veto. I think that they'll have to make that ceiling increase $2.5 trillion to off of those $1.5 trillion in cuts. I think the president has been quite specific about Social Security on indexing to the CPI change, which is a benefit. I think he's been specific on Medicare and Medicaid cuts in the guts of these deals.
So has Nancy Pelosi, but that's a different story.
I think he's gone a little farther than that, sir.
Yeah. We gotta go. Good to talk to both of you. We'll see you next time, Senator and Jared Bernstein.